So hello, everyone. Thanks a lot. I'm Gaurav. I'm the founder and CEO of RagaAI. Very excited to welcome the panelists on a very important topic, which is multi-agent systems. I'm going to introduce the panelists in a bit. We have, of course, Rav who's the co-founder and CEO of crewAI. We have Corey, who is the VP and head of AI and platforms for UKG, and we have Biswaroop, who is the head of product for LlamaIndex. Pradeep, who was supposed to join, who is a VP of enterprise at ServiceNow. He could not. He got sick yesterday. But I think we are going to have him in a future panel as well, right? Sometime. So with that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the exciting work we are doing at RagaAI in partnership with all the panelists, by the way. And then we jump right into the panel. All right. So keep the questions coming in. With that, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Any instructions from our admin? Maybe we're going to start with an interesting poll. Admin, are we going to show the poll? All right. Let's get some feedback from our audience. So everyone in the audience, you have the option to answer the poll, and we'll see the results.
I'm just laughing because it looks like we can't vote. Huh?
Yeah. So panelists, I don't know why is that, but host and panelists can't vote. But yeah, we'll have our attendees vote. Have you ever considered using multi-agent systems, right? Or you have? Are you planning to use multi-agent systems? Let's see what the result says. Admin. All right. So it's kind of split, I think. So I think the industry is getting there. We are seeing more and more excitement around multi-agents, right? So I think we can close the. All right. With that, very exciting day for RagaAI. We are going to make some exciting announcements, and we have some of the best industry leaders who are going to give their views on multi-agent systems. So let me just spend a few minutes just talking about some of the exciting things we are doing at RagaAI. So RagaAI has been the industry's leading reliability platform for Gen AI and agentic AI systems, with the goal of reducing AI risk and getting faster to market. And that has been our focus area, starting from RAG applications to agents and now multi-agents. And multi-agents, what we are seeing has expanded the capabilities that are available for any business leader or tech leaders significantly. And there are many very interesting and exciting reasons for that. Multi-agent systems are by definition modular in nature, right? So they have different kind of specialized agents which are working pretty much in tandem, right? And which can significantly enhance the overall success and quality of the outcome, right? Because we can have specialized agents which can do specific job much better than a monolithic system. It can also reduce chances of errors by we can have fallback. We can have a much better way of basically understanding the potential failures as well. Right. So, and that's what the capability of multi-agent system, which is becoming a very important part of how the overall technology spectrum is moving. This is a very exciting example. There are like every industry, every workflow is looking at aspects of agents and multi-agent systems, right? And this is an example we picked from a healthcare, which is like a patient concierge, right? A patient can ask questions about their symptoms, can book appointments, or get feedback from the insurance. So in this case, there are multiple agents which is being orchestrated by a concierge agent to provide the right feedback, be it to give feedback on their symptoms, help with the scheduling, help with the billing, right? So this is a very simple, basically a representation of a multi-agent system as an example. You can read through this blog, which is available on our website, which talks about various aspects of multi-agent systems from build to basically testing to deploy and to observe and monitor. And that's some of the things that we are going to focus on today as well. But there are a lot of challenges when we build and scale multi-agent systems, right? In terms of making sure that the performance is correct all the time. There are aspects of safety in terms of the overall system, the data privacy, and the overall efficiency. Right? These are some of the three important dimensions that we have seen where there are concerns when enterprises are building and deploying agents or multi-agent systems. And that's exactly where RagaAI come in. We already have a well-established platform called RagaAI Catalyst, which is help to evaluate and monitor and observe any agent or multi-agent system, right? And this is a overall flow of basically building and deploying and scaling, right? So we start with build using some of the leading platforms out there. Obviously, we have our partners, crewAI and LlamaIndex here today. And then the second part is evaluate, which is like, if I draw an analogy from the software world, is testing of those systems, right? Be it looking at various metrics, we are looking at various aspects of orchestration or planning or integration challenges, right? So all aspects of testing and evaluating multi-agent systems. The next step is deploy and manage, right? Where we are able to effectively deploy across frameworks, across platforms, or different architectures. Then we are able to manage the life cycle of agents from various aspects. And the third part, and the last step here is basically being able to observe and make sure that they are working reliably while we are deploying and scaling them, right? So the things like guardrails, observability becomes extremely important together with alerts and dashboards. So until now, we have been focusing a lot on, from RagaAI perspective, on evaluate and monitor through our platform, RagaAI Catalyst. One part where we have seen customers really looking to get help or support or capabilities is a deploy and manage part. The build part is very well solved right today, and thanks to some of the amazing platforms out there. And deploy and manage is something that we have seen some challenges there. And that's exactly what we want to announce today. So we are launching RagaAI Canvas, which is a platform to deploy and manage, right? Which helps us with two big parts, deploy and manage. So we'll talk about that. And it works very closely with our Catalyst platform and obviously integrates very closely with the build platforms that are out there. So the deploy part, as I was mentioning, right? So there are some of the key challenges that this platform addresses is being able to basically support the popular frameworks across different clouds, across different deployment architectures, be it SaaS, VPC, on-prem, being able to provide basically integrated CI/CD, which is integrated with Git as well. Every time there's a change in code, we can quickly trigger evaluation right then and there. Observability is baked in the overall architecture when you deploy and scale, right? And then there have been a lot of feature and capabilities around security, for example, right, and controls. The same thing from lifecycle management. Lifecycle management is actually becoming extremely important, which is like I have n number of agents. I'm gonna start after deployment, start to spawn them very similar to like microservices, right? So if I have, let's say, 100 agents, I'm gonna start the agents basically assign resources, authentication, run them, and then once the job is done, suspend them or kill them, spawn other agents. Right? So how do I manage all those, right? Versioning is an important part of it, right? When I'm swapping agents, how do I make sure of being able to manage the memory that agent had, right? So all those becomes an extremely part of and complex part that is not part of the RagaAI Canvas. Now let me quickly show a demo of this, and then we go to our panel discussion. So this is a quick example of a multi-agent system here. So we are showing how we basically integrate the tracing part here in a very simplistic manner. Same is true for the observe part that we talked about. And then the deploy and manage part that we have emphasized as well. All right, with that, these are some of the resources that are available. The blog is fairly comprehensive, and you can go to the web page and you can a live demo. With that, let's move to our panel. Yeah. So with that, I will switch to to switch to our panel here. Multi-agent systems are becoming extremely important as we talked about. I would like to invite the panel, quickly introduce them, and we will have a very engaging discussion. So let me start with introducing our panel. Rob, welcome, Rob. Rob is a CEO and co-founder at crewAI. He is deeply interested in multi-agents, and he's going to provide us deep insights on the business and use case of agentic AI. Previously, he was a CEO and founder of Backbone AI, AI-powered transformation platform, the CEO at Customer with a K, which is the AI for support teams, and CEO of DataShift AI for real-time data. He is also an early investor and executive at 3 enterprise software unicorns, Customer, Fireblocks, and Blockdaemon, in the last 5 years that are now collectively worth $10 million+. That's pretty amazing. Welcome, Rob. Then we have Corey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then we have Corey, who is the VP of Product and AI at UKG. He's an experienced leader with a diverse background in digital marketing, strategy, product management, and analytics. He excels at leading cross-functional teams and is passionate about maximizing the potential of new technologies. He had several leadership roles over the past several years in product and AI. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you.
And then we have Biswaroop Palit, who is the head of product at LlamaIndex. He brings a holistic view of business, including strategy, marketing analysis, deep go-to-market expertise, and product positioning. He's also particularly effective at developing people and building strong cross-functional relationships. He's a product builder with an obsessive focus on solving customer problems and building simple-to-consume product experiences. Welcome, Biswaroop.
Hi, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot for an amazing panel. This is as good as it gets. So with that, with no further delay, I'm going to request each panelist to introduce their experience in agentic and multi-agentic world and just talk about how they see this field evolving. Yeah, please go ahead. Maybe Rob, you want to start?
Not really, but I will if you want me to.
All right.
Yeah, so I've been doing AI for like 15 years, mostly, and been very specifically focused on agentic, mostly over the last year. I'm kind of a secondary co-founder to Javangula at crewAI. In the last year, we have engaged with thousands of different companies around the world on different multi-agentic use cases. Also, like to cook.
Yeah, I'll go next. So as I was introduced, Corey Spencer, I own our platform and AI strategy at UKG. UKG is, not a lot of people know about it, but it's about a $5 billion in ARR company, 15,000 employees. And it's an amalgam of different acquisitions of Kronos and Ultimate Software and Great Place to Work. So it is everything from frontline people who have to punch in every day to HR managers who are reviewing performance evaluations, to culture survey data. So we own this wide spectrum of the worker data. And as we're diving into agentic AI, we see a lot of use cases for multi-agent systems, both internally, but also as we work with third-party partners to reach beyond what we would normally do. And we're actually finding a lot of potential for it, but there's a lot we have yet to learn in the process. So because we are acquisitions, we're bringing all of our data together so that we can train uniform data across all these different business units. But there's a lot of internal training and internal vision creation that is happening in the company. But I would say, there's no topic in the company, between all of the announcements and MCP and everything else going on. Even our CEO is asking about our multi-agentic strategy as of last week. And so we are starting to build that out right now.
Great. Yeah. Go ahead. Thanks a lot, Corey. Go ahead, Biswaroop. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I work at LlamaIndex. LlamaIndex, hopefully, most of the attendees know about it, but it's one of the leading open source, dev tools frameworks for building AI applications. And of late, as customers and partners have been adopting, agents more and more, we have built out our framework to support agentic workflows. So we have something called LlamaIndex workflows, which lets you to build out your agents. We have something called agent workflows, which is a multi-agent orchestration orchestrator. And then, in terms of, our specific focus, we tend to focus on what we call, document agents or knowledge management agents, which is essentially take enterprises data, kind of like what Corey is talking about, and how do you connect that to agents and workflows and enable these agents to kind of access this enterprise data as tools in addition to the other tools that an agent might have access to, and make automation of workflows more seamless. So that's our current focus, especially on the commercial side of our product line.
Great. Rob, you raised your hand. Something you wanted to say there?
Nope.
All right. Okay. There's a question, by the way. What do you like to cook?
Wow. Well, right now we're cooking up a lot of stuff for crewAI, but personally, I cook mostly
Rob,
Japanese.
I think you're on mute.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
No, actually,
Nope.
I can hear.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
Corey, just messing with me, right? But I would say mostly Japanese and Italian.
All right. Okay. I think you got the answer there. All right. Great. Yes. All right. So with that, I think would love to ask our panelists on some of the use cases that you are seeing in what industries. I know this is a broad question, but would love to just get our attendees get a big picture, right? Because I think you are seeing the breadth of the industry here, right? So yeah, would love to get feedback on that.
Corey, Biswaroop, would you guys want to start?
He's here. Can you give me just a second?
Yeah. That's good.
I think Corey is having some technical issues. Why don't you start?
Yeah, I can get started.
Yes,
yeah, I can get started. Yeah. I think from our side, as I said, right, so there's the open source framework, and there we see a breadth of use cases, everything from, you are buying a condo, and in purchasing of a condo, you need to evaluate the specific financial details of the HOA system, and how do you go building an agent to evaluate the health of an HOA based on meeting minutes and financial spreadsheets and stuff like that. We have companies who are building tools, customer facing startups around these ideas. We specifically, the enterprise customers we end up working directly with, that's focused a lot on their core enterprise data. This typically, some of the use cases which are actually listed out publicly, we have a private equity firm who is building out an LBO agent, leverage buyout agent, using our tools. And so what they do is, like, in this context, they have a multi-agent system where they actually, I believe, have something ridiculous, like 100+ agent system, where they are taking in their financial analysts, they take in research for a particular company and their top five other competitors. And the eventual goal is to try and make a decision on whether to invest in it or not. And they have, like, for each of those 6 companies, so the target company and the 6 other companies, 5 other companies, they do multiple various analysis and then, like, synthesize everything together into a report. And that's the outcome of that agent, which is then evaluated by the investment professionals, as opposed to diving into each of these. And, like, as you can imagine, in this, like, high stakes decision that it's trying to enable, like, things like citation and specifically pointing out where from your documents did you pull a particular source of information, etc., is relevant. And then, like, just to give you a breadth of other use cases, like back office automation, invoice processing, contract evaluation, and stuff like that. Those are fairly common examples that we end up seeing.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, thanks.
Thanks, Biswaroop.
Yeah.
I'll go next if you want.
Yeah, please go ahead, Rob. Yeah.
Biswaroop, that was a great answer. Let me see if I can be accretive to what you said. So by way of quick background, so crewAI, we have the open source framework, which is used by 50 to 60% of the US Fortune 500. It's been downloaded in 150 plus countries. We also launched an enterprise offering last summer, went live with it in October, which includes a bunch of stuff, including a studio for low code creation of crews, workflow, functionality, et cetera. And across the 2 different offerings, which are complementary, we've seen hundreds of use cases. And we've seen hundreds of use cases now go into production. So people talk about 2025 being the year of POCs, which is partly true, but we're already seeing lots of use cases going into production. I think what we'd like to do when we engage with customers is think of it in terms of kind of like a maturity curve. So based on where companies are at in their maturity curve with AI agents, we will typically recommend a different set of use cases. So if people are earlier in their adoption of AI agents, we will typically recommend, let's call it easier use cases, lower precision requirements, unstructured data, less data sources, not necessarily mission critical, and not necessarily customer facing to start with. As customers become more sophisticated, they will scale up in terms of sophistication of process flows, how many data sources they're pulling from, are they cross-departmental, and are they customer facing? We've seen just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of use cases. It's been incredible to see the diversity. Some of the areas of concentration include obviously customer support, people wanting to build their own systems, everything around sales acceleration, CRM, marketing content, and then a bunch of stuff that we had not expected. Everything from creating custom natural language query layers on top of data lakes to, in one case, we saw, and this is kind of a corner case, we saw a music producer using AI agents to produce pop songs.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Corey, I mean, I think your industry, I think we have chatted before, right, is like hundreds or more use cases. I would love to hear your thoughts on those.
Yeah, we have quite a few. In fact, we're in the beginning stages of what we're calling an agent-a-thon, where we went to all of our product and engineers. We just said, all of you can self-organize. We'll give you 2 weeks to build an agent. We had over 97 submissions. And then we said, okay, we'll give some of you 2 weeks to build agents. We can't quite have everybody, so many people doing that right now. But yeah, from our use case, like people use, like, I want to book time off, right? And all of us have been in systems where you end up with like this giant laundry list of navigations on the left-hand side, and you just want to book next Tuesday off. We've built agents that can handle that. You just type that into the prompt and it takes care of everything else for you. I need to promote somebody. That's like 15 to 20 clicks in a lot of these systems. Or I need to start payroll. A lot of these are systems where the agents can automate a tremendous amount of it, but then come back to the user for verification. So if I say, hey, I'm going to promote Jimmy, it comes back and says, which Jimmy are you talking about? And it takes them through a more conversational or agentic approach of automating the system. We also deal with incredibly sensitive data. And so making sure that humans are in the loop, making sure that actions are auditable, making sure that we can, we have what we call a bright trust index that we're rolling out so that administrators can look and ensure that the right things are being delivered to the right people is critical. And then as we think about multi-agent, the more, one of the first questions that comes up when we talk to our developers about building agents is granularity. How granular do I make an agent? Do I make a big agent that can handle a whole bunch of things, or do I create some abstractions and smaller agents? As we're starting our multi-agent multi-agent system journey, we're in a lot of those conversations right now about ensuring that the right level of granularity happens. But we have about 20 agents that are in beta as of this month, and we have a goal of doing 15 to 20 agents each quarter to continue to roll out these types of features for our customers.
Great. I think, this is really, we are seeing a strong, I would say a significant growth in adoption of agents. But I just want to double click on, on one point, which I think all our panelists have indicated, is the maturity curve, right? I think, Rob, you used that word, right? So if I go back a year, right, RAGs, everyone was talking about RAGs, right? If I fast forward 6 months, all right, it's agents, simple agents maybe, right? And today it's multi-agents, right? And we are seeing a significant adoption, or at least a desire to adopt multi-agent systems, right? So just would love to hear your thoughts, right? Do we expect several production multi-agent systems to be launched this year, or will it be next year, right? How do you see the maturity of basically deployment of these agents, multi-agent systems to happen, right? And yeah, anyone can please go ahead.
Corey, you want to go first this time? You went last time. You go first.
No. I'll let you go first this time. Go ahead.
Biswaroop, you want to go?
Yeah,
all right, I'll go. Yeah, I think it's there's no one simple answer. And instead we're seeing kind of a spectrum. So I will say that, and I actually have a slide I could share in case you're interested, Gaurav, on adoption levels. Yeah, watch. And it's, sure. Yeah, if that's okay. Oh, hold on one second here. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
There you go. It just kind of helps to have a visual behind it. And this is pretty generic stuff. This is pretty similar to what you might see from like a Gartner or Forrester or someone like that. So nothing particularly proprietary about it. What we do when we engage with customers is try to identify where they are. I will say that, basically no one is at level 5. That is more aspirational. A few companies are probably like level 4, and Corey, it sounds like you guys are probably between 3, probably at 4 now, which is amazing, and puts you ahead of the curve. And we're seeing most companies that we engage with deeply are probably level 2 or level 3. The majority of the market is still at level 1, and this kind of reminds me a little bit of the adoption of past technology waves like mobile, cloud, etc. So what we try to do is focus on the level 2 to level 4s. Level 4s are in production. Level 2 to level 3, what they're trying to do is kind of build up the flywheel. So typically what we're doing is working with our customers on a quick win of use cases. So we're very proactively identifying initial use cases that are easy wins and low-hanging fruit. And then we do a lot of use case road mapping with folks as well. So as you're probably hearing, there's definitely the platform component of it, but there's also, and I think this is frequently underestimated by a lot of tech companies and multi-agent companies, is the human side of this. So we spend a huge amount of time doing things like identifying champions, executive buy-in, and we have a network of consulting companies that we work with to kind of help us do all of this.
This is great.
This is a great slide.
Yeah.
I would say. yeah, I'd love to get my hands on. Yeah, we're around that 3 and 4. So like we have an agentic framework that we're using. We're building agents. We're getting them into beta. I will tell you, it is internally, it's a new muscle, right? And there's so many questions that developers and product managers have. There's so many questions that UX has. And I think any of us who work in enterprise software, I think there's questions that we have about what is the future of enterprise software? What are we selling in an agentic first world? And I think, I don't think a lot of people have great answers for that yet. I will say that, as we continue to work on building out these frameworks, or leveraging frameworks and building out these agents, that we have, there's a lot of opportunity for miscommunication. There's a lot of opportunity for fear, and that a big part of our job is to over communicate and to be very clear about the expectations, and internally, but also externally. I think this is also an area where people are more concerned about press than reality right now. And so you have a lot of promises being made, a lot of things being said, a lot of competitors, making statements that are audacious and huge. And we have to be very careful about over-promising on AI, I think, and some of the, where the technology is from a maturity standpoint, where the vendors are, as I'm talking to some of them, from as they start filling in some of the gaps. And so both internally and externally, I think we have to be very cautious and careful.
Great. No, I think that's a great perspective. Biswaroop, would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, kind of just trying to think through what would be good to add, right? Like, so clearly there is a spectrum, like spot on. I think maybe a couple of interesting differences that I observe. One is, in previous technology waves, typically it had been the younger, faster moving startups are the first to adopt. And then like there is, adoption in the larger enterprises and stuff like that. You kind of saw that in the cloud and stuff like that. Like, the core cloud native companies like Netflix, etc., were relatively young when they started on AWS. That's not true with this wave. Like I think, and the factor in my mind is because LLMs kind of enable you to start working on unstructured data a lot more effectively, and the companies which have a ton of unstructured data are the companies who have been in business for like 10, 15, 20 years, right? Like at least. So that's one difference I see from previous waves of technology, is that there are actually, like in Rob's slide, like there would probably be companies which are fairly mature, which are in 3, 4 rating, like kind of like what Corey himself is on. The other thing that I see, like your initial question about, like, earlier it was all about RAG, now then it was about agents, then it's about multi-agents and stuff like that. I think the primary reason for that is actually the core underlying LLMs themselves are evolving so fast that earlier like the constraint, the context window was kind of super constrained, and hence RAG was the way you would interact with that. Now with like much larger context windows and stuff like that, that challenge is somewhat eliminated, and yet the agent does need to tap into the right amount of enterprise knowledge context when it's trying to do a task. And so while a core RAG as an app is less in demand, we do see that like enterprise knowledge as a tool for these agents is still like equally in demand, right? Like, and like that's what most of our enterprise use cases enable, is the enterprise knowledge base as a tool for the multi-agent system. So that's the other thing I would say, is like it's part of the evolution. It's not that RAG is not relevant at all. It's just that, like, yes, no one is building RAG based chatbots anymore, or like fewer people are, and like more of that is around enabling the knowledge base as a tool which can be accessed by the agent anytime.
Yeah, I think clearly. And I think that's the reason custom agents, right, which are which are specific to enterprise use cases are becoming more, right, more and more important,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So just talking about the expectations and the ROI, I think that was touched upon by both Corey and Rob, right? We hear across the board, right? Hey, are we going to get the ROI if we are gonna build 10 agents, 20 agents, 50 agents, right? I think all executives are tech and business leaders have that question, right? Is this too much hype going on, right? I would love to hear your thoughts in terms of expectations and ROI that we can expect from a multi-agent system. So maybe Rob, you want to take that? Start with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're on the back half of this webinar, so I'm going to try to be a little spicy here. ROI in agent use cases doesn't matter.
Okay.
What I mean by that is what we've found across the hundreds of companies we've worked with. ROI, kind of classic ROI calculations are pretty easy to like game, and shockingly, I found across all the companies I've scaled, senior executives tend to kind of be pretty suspicious of ROI use cases when they're put together. What we have found, especially being in the early stages, is what is extremely important is setting up metrics for success. So things like throughput and accuracy. And so what we have found is that we don't hear people talking about ROI as much. They do, but they talk more about things like total number of hours of labor reduced, or the amount of throughput of support agents or back office processing people being increased. So it's more about, I would say, operational metrics combined with different requirements around accuracy are a hell of a lot more important. And especially comparing it to whatever they have been doing before, or whether or not they have. So for example, we're seeing a huge flood of companies shifting from RPA to APA, to kind of throw out some buzzwords or buzz terms there. And so a lot of times what people are doing, they're not necessarily saying, oh, here's my ROI and payback return on an agentic use case. They're saying, look, here's what RPA was able to do. Here's how often it broke. Here's the error rate. Here's what we want to do. Here's the kind of minimum threshold to do a switchover. Can you hit this threshold in terms of volume and accuracy? If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great perspective, right? Corey, would love to hear your thoughts, right? Means you are sitting in an enterprise driving these, right? How, right? Would love to get your feedback.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think ROI, I mean, I don't think when we're thinking about AI agents, right? Not just like machine learning and AI in general. It's such a new industry. It's such a new technology. It's I think what people do is they lump it in with autonomous cars and crypto and blockchain and anything else that was hot for a moment and didn't quite have the same potential that was promised, right? And so all new tech gets scrutinized with that same level of concern. I think where this is different is the players that you're seeing and the activity that you're seeing, the ROI almost works opposite. Like if you're not looking at how agentic frameworks are going to help you move faster, by the time you do, the ROI won't matter because you're going to be fighting for your life. And you're going to be trying to justify and convince people why you weren't at the beginning of this. So a lot of the metaphor I often use is like if you were a travel agent in the early 2000s and said, I'm not that worried about the internet. We'll wait and see if it happens. By the time you did, your job was already replaced by a half a dozen companies that did jump into it. So I think we're seeing something very similar here, where if we sit around and we count pennies and dimes and say exactly how much profitability there is in agentic work, you're going to find yourself spending 10 times more on marketing when you've already missed the boat. And those that are investing in it now, it's not cheap. It takes a lot of effort. It takes, we have a business to run while we're also building the future of our agents, right? So there's a constant flux of customer promises. We have to deliver this half in order to meet our revenue targets, and building things that we think next year will be the most important topics and the most important stuff. And I think companies just have to do that now. And at Google Next, we heard from company after company that talked about the fact that, yeah, you're having to like balance two books more or less, the current one and then the future one. But I don't think you really have a choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
No. I think there are a bunch of questions. I'll just jump to some of those. Just wanted to cover one more important topic on technology advancements that are happening or need to happen to make the multi-agent systems really achieve what they want, what they need to do. For example, obviously, A2A was a big announcement a couple of weeks back, right? There was nothing very standardized for agent-to-agent communication. Obviously, MCP and A2A has been a topic of discussion. So we'd love to hear thoughts from the panel on what are some of the key technology advancements needs to happen for multi-agent system to achieve their potential. And Biswaroop, you want to?
Yeah, maybe I can get us started. So I would say like there are a few things, right? Like see, like MCP is more a tools communication, right? Like it's not necessarily agent to agent. Like A2A is the agent to agent piece, but I think still evolving. I would say there are so just in the core capabilities of an agent, I would say, still memory and state management is not a solved problem, and like there needs to be, like a bunch of improvements there, like especially, where you need human in the loop, like maintaining state and like bringing back like and like maintaining state potentially for a really long time, given that like a human can respond, maybe the next night, like I get started with something and I check in like only next morning on where things are. So that's, I think, like a big piece of work. The other, I would say, is depending on the kind of workflow you're trying to automate with your agent, the user level auth and privilege control, like that is still like in its very early formative stages. So there are certain workflows that I described, right? Like invoice processing or like claims processing. There, this is less relevant, right? Like because the people who are interested in it all have access to all the docs and stuff. But like when you are talking about employee productivity use cases and stuff like that, like what Rob has access to versus, what a product manager will have access to within crewAI is very, very different. And so like ensuring those pieces are authenticated, I think like that's like the user auth and user privilege reflection is going to be a very important piece. I think like those two in my mind are things that still need to really evolve and form up.
Great. No, I think makes sense. Completely makes sense. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll add. So agree with everything you said. We are in the very early days of multi-agent. Reminds me kind of like, internet and, kind of 99. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of really cool individual stuff that works somewhat well together, like observability components, accuracy components, integration with different applications. And if I were to, if we really look at things from a customer perspective, and ask them what they want, I think things that we hear are one, especially from larger enterprises, which are a big bulk of our customers, interoperability between all the different agentic components, I think is probably one of the big ones. And two, I think a lot of tooling to make it easy and no code for everybody to adopt AI agents. I think our goal is for everybody to use AI agents to make themselves more productive. And currently right now, most, if not all of the tools for accessing multi-agent technology are at least somewhat technical. So I think to the extent that we make the tools not just interoperable, but no code, intuitive, but also highly performant and accurate, I think is going to be absolutely key. So interoperability and democratization of access to the tools.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think let's start with democratization of the tools. I think the future has to be that a person who has an idea for an agent can execute and build and manage that agent as quickly as possible. I think you'll always have folks that are more technical or we're developers or are developers that can move more quickly, but making sure that you have folks or have processes and systems are starting to, the market is starting to mature where we start to have those systems where someone can say, hey, I've got an idea for an agent. I'm going to go build it in this framework, test it out, and start, maybe moving it to production. One other thing is I looked through some of the questions here. One of them that was asked is like, is FOMO really the best way to incentivize moving to agents and saying like, hey, you don't want to be the last one. So I'll tell you, like, I as a user of these technologies to sell other software, I'll give just some quick experiences. First, I've spent the last decade selling to CTOs and CDIOs. I can tell you right now that there's no CDIO of any other major enterprise company that isn't being asked by their CEO, don't buy a vendor that doesn't have a strong AI strategy. So if you're selling, like for me, selling enterprise software, I can tell you that our customers are asking us, what is your strategy? What are you, like, they're asking us about our agent frameworks. They're asking us about what models we're using. I think really at the end of the day, I think part of the goal has to be like, how do you, like, no one had to teach someone how to use ChatGPT. You put a prompt box in front of them and they started learning it. I think enterprise software has to move in a similar direction to where, you are solving problems, you're not using software. And I think agentic frameworks it's the best technology I've seen in 30 years to help us do that. So like, I think we get a little obsessed about terms. And I can see in the market, people go like, we have 50 agents and we have 200 agents and we have 5,000 agents. I'm like, who cares? I could create an agent that does nothing but check for grammar. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's helping you use enterprise software. I do think how we use these to solve real customer problems, how we enable others to build those agents as quickly and deploy them as seamlessly and as trustworthy as possible, those would be the companies that continue to move ahead, because the next generation of users are going to just say, why can't I just ask you to solve my problem? And I truly believe that that's the direction that we're going.
Great. Well, thanks a lot.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so what I think I'm hearing is FOMO opens the door, use cases close the deal.
Completely agree. Yep.
I think there are a bunch of questions around some of the challenges. So I'm just going to club some of them. So like, what are some of the challenges we see, or there talks about monitoring, observability, governance, and security, right? So yeah, so what are some of the challenges we are seeing across the board, right? And enterprises are taking from POC to production.
Biswaroop, you want to start this time?
Yeah, I'm happy to, like, yeah, I mean, like, in my mind, so I think, like, I fully agree. Like, there is an implicit let's do it, else we'll be left behind kind of phenomena happening in leadership across like very large enterprises. So this is very different from like previous waves of technology where, people are not moving forward. So I think like the leaning in from the top level is really there. I think what is like today, rightly, to the point of like democratization, one of the pieces is, I mean, the technology is in a state where you do need to have a lot of guardrails around it, right? And hence, like oftentimes it is almost like making anyone able to use, and like automate things using a simple drag and drop is probably not the right way, especially if you are thinking about like customer facing applications and stuff like that. And so I do believe that like for a lot of certain types of applications will be very developer led uh, in the next year, 2 years at least, while the democratization of like a business analyst trying and automating workflows using agents, etc., will likely be more focused on internal facing workflows and things of that nature, right? Like create a report automatically of what my team has been working on and stuff like that. So I think like that's one piece that I would say is a challenge. Then translates into how much is your enterprise developer team able to take in terms of the backlog and like be able to deliver faster. So and that's where like we actually end up enabling the enterprise developers teams to just like get much higher in terms of their velocity of shipping by delivering a lot of like the core undifferentiated work, taking that off of their plates. So I would say that's one major thing. I think, like earlier on, like Gaurav's first slide about like some of the issues, famous issues that customer support bots ran into and stuff like that. I think like I haven't seen any major gotchas of that sort in the last quarter or so. So I think like the technology is getting better. People are getting better at adopting it. But yeah, I would primarily say it's like, dev teams bandwidth to adopt this technology and roll out net new use cases for their stakeholders.
Makes sense. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
Corey?
No, none that jump out to me right now. I think, same thing that was already said.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. I think I'm just picking questions and so one question is, Rob, directly to you. Can you share a company that is level 5 or agent native?
I know as a short answer, because that's aspirational. Other than, obviously crewAI, and I'm assuming UKG, LlamaIndex, and others. It's more aspirational at this point. But we expect to see a lot more by the end of this year. I do want to go back and I think Jordan Wabe, who's one of the audience, asked specifically me for more spicy takes. I'll tell you, we talked about the technology that we need for multi-agents, and there's a lot. I'll tell you one thing we do not need right now: agent-to-agent payment startups, especially those that are using crypto to facilitate payments between agents. I've been pitched on like 10 of them in the last year, and we 100% do not need them. You should not fund them. So there you go. There's a quick spicy take on the last one. Back to you, Gaurav.
Yeah, I haven't heard any of those, thankfully. That seems pretty
I met
sketchy.
one of them actually recently. Yeah. So I think there's one for Biswaroop. If you can share your thoughts on role-based access control being used for agents, and if that's the right way to scale.
Yeah. So again, like it'll depend on the specific use cases that the agent is targeting, right? Like as I mentioned, like workflows like invoice processing and like contract value extraction, etc., less relevant to respect. So there's role-based access control. There's also user privileges and stuff like that. I may be thinking more user privileges. Role-based access control is like more on the platform side of things, right? Like so for example, like in our platform, and I'm sure like Crew has something similar, where you will have the concept of a admin who will come in and like who can configure things and stuff like that, and then there are users who can come in and like create agents, but they are not like the end-to-end admin. So like the admin can lay certain boundaries and stuff like that. Like a lot of these enterprises use LLMs via an API gateway and stuff like an LLM gateway and stuff. You can't directly call OpenAI or Claude and stuff. And so you will so that's the context of RBAC within how different operators on your platform will be playing around with that system. And then like happy to maybe if the question was more nuanced, like happy to get clarifications and chat offline as well, Shrikant.
I'll add something to that. So like role-based is important on who gets access to which agents. Those agents, making sure that you understand what they have access to and what data they have access to, and the context of the users of that agent and the data they have access to is also very important. So we have a product in our system that we call conversational reporting, and it is exactly as it sounds. I type in, how many employees do I have working in this location next week, and making sure that you have the right context and the right rights management to the data that agent is accessing based on the person who is asking the question is also very important. And so it goes deeper than just saying, does Corey have access to this agent, but also based on the person using the agent, what data does that agent have access to? And so you have to go a little deeper than just access control. I will say, here's my spicy take. I think we're in for, like, at least in the enterprise world, we're in for just gross administration checkboxes all over the place if we're not really careful, right? Like, admin panels are already disgusting. And now you're going to say, hey, we have our traditional UI and our agentic UI, and who has access to what, and should they all be the same? And like, as more trust is accumulated in the AI world, they'll become more streamlined. But we actually just had a conversation this week as a principal in our organization that we do not differentiate between the administration and role management and data management from AI or traditional UI, that they ought to be the same. But our customers were asking for separate. They want to say, like, some people can use AI and some things, and some people can use traditional UI and other things. And we just felt like we've got to push through that. That's an issue of distrust or uncertainty. And we don't want to solve a short-term problem by creating a long-term problem of even grosser user administration. So that's part of what we're dealing with in our world.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with Corey. I think today, access level controls and user-based permissions, not a problem. In the very near future, dumpster fire. And so we've spent a ton of time kind of focusing on that and kind of working collaboratively with customers on what they want. And where we've kind of migrated to is a product or offering that was launched in the last few months in closed beta called Factory, which essentially involves 3 fundamental classes of users: controllers, operators, and then end users. So a controller would be a highly technical person in an IT organization with deep experience in agents and AI that, controls what people can do, what applications are integrated with the agents, guardrails, rate limits, permitted LLMs. I mean, there's a very long list of stuff that needs to be checked off. Operators will typically have some leeway in what they can work with. And as we kind of talked about earlier, I think for agents to really go big in the enterprise, we're going to need to democratize access. But I think the democratization of access to agent systems needs to happen in a no-code but highly permissioned way. And so I think I would say that a year from now, 80 to 90% of people will be using multi-agent systems, may not even know they're using a multi-agent system. Because what they're going to see is a heavily sandboxed kind of interface that's no code.
Got it. I think that's great perspective. Anything else to add? A lot of exciting comments coming in. So I'm just going to pick another one. I think this one, yeah. So I think on the topic of, I think there's a couple of questions on that topic of trust and humans versus agents, right? Working in the same environment, right? Yeah, so I think this is something coming up everywhere, right? So where do we see, like, how things are going to evolve in short term and long term, right? I would love to hear the perspective.
So my perspective, well, I think this is where transparency is going to be just absolutely critical. Understanding your own agents and the language models or different models that they're using, being able to surface to the customer when there's a possibility that it's sharing something that you can't verify, being very careful about the context that your agents have and very open about whether or not they can or shouldn't be able to say some of these things. I don't think there's a lot of, like, really, as was mentioned earlier, we're seeing fewer and fewer accidents where people like are buying Porsches on chatbots or whatever, like all of these crazy things. But I do think we're in a place where there's a lot of, like, womp womp, like, oh, this didn't quite do what I thought it was, or this answer I disagree with. Different models, when you combat them against each other, disagree on things. It's kind of a fun project to do sometimes. And I think just being really transparent about where your trust index is on any particular response, so that the end user can look at it and say, okay, this is something I can hang my hat on, or this is like a best guess, or possibly has some hallucinations in it, which means you need to know the system well enough and need to have the observability, not just for your developers to use, but for your end users to see. So to me, that's just like you can't give them too much data. You've got to be able to share with them all of the information and create that transparency and that trust over time.
Well said. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Rob is smiling.
I think Biswaroop should go next.
All right, Bishop. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I actually was typing a response back, so I kind of missed the question. What's the
Just to balance the trust between human and agents, right? And how is going to evolve now and later, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think like basically actually there was a relevant question, and maybe I'll add that to it. Like
Sure.
there was a question about like design and like how can design enable shipping of like more agents and stuff like that. I think like this is just an example, right? Like where so trust between here's like my personal belief and like how I use say a chat GPT or Claude in my day-to-day life at work or personally, right? Like I think like right now where the technology is it's extremely powerful, but you got to trust you got to verify it a lot, right? Like there is going to be situations of hallucination. The probability of that is reducing, but I can guarantee you that there would be, and hence the verification loop is very, very important. And so similarly, like I think like what I personally believe in is this is a fundamental transformation technology that is going to evolve how we work, what our kids will study 10 years from now and stuff like that. But like you got to kind of you shouldn't fear it, but like you should always verify the responses and like the outputs that you're getting. And I think like one of the examples that personally was brought up from one of someone in design who used to report to me was they were frustrated that like my developers, now that they are using these software the software coding agents, they are shipping things faster than I can even create mocks, and I'm just becoming a reviewer of like their prototype and stuff like that. They wanted more of a seat at the table. I think like in my mind, the people who will succeed are the people who adopt the technology to the point where, there are tools enabled for designers who can like now do prototypes much, much faster. Like in fact, like very close to the finish line kind of prototypes much, much faster than spending a week on Figma. And like the people who will adopt are like who will succeed are people who will use this to then go and create a backlog for their front-end engineers. So I'm like, oh, there are these 10 prototypes ready, and when are you going to ship these to us? Versus people who complain that, hey, like you are shipping faster than I can create mocks and stuff like that. So I think like that's where the world is right now. Not specifically just for agents, but like in general about like AI adoption is be very, very open to the possibilities that AI opens up, but like verify the output very, very closely.
Well said. Got to
Yeah.
make the commitment to make the commitment to experimenting and just getting started. We don't have a choice. I think almost any new technology looks scary in the early days, and the more profoundly transformational technology is, the scarier it looks up front, and the more people are going to try to fight it and resist it. But it also creates a bigger opportunity. How many people on this webinar have taken a Waymo? Corey, have you taken a Waymo? Yeah. I got to say, the first time that I took one, it was really freaky. And now I just take it. I don't even, it's not even really a big deal. And I think that's a great metaphor for technology in general. The first time you look at it, it's scary. You try it out. I'll admit the first time I did a Waymo, I think I just went a few blocks and then I got comfortable, and now I take it all the time when I'm in SF. So I think you start out small, experiment, and then go bigger. And so I think part of it is personal experience, and I think part of it is stats. Waymos may seem scary, but they're actually several orders of magnitude safer than human-driven cars. And I think that Google and obviously other companies have done a fantastic job of putting stats out into the marketplace showing how self-driving is in many ways safer than human. And I think that helps too. So stats and personal experience.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note, like if you're on this webinar, you're like part of the 1%, right? Like I'm constantly amazed as I'm being brought into meetings with customers and executives. How like I can't dumb it down enough. It sounds bad, but like I've got to get down to like you have AI on your phone because you have a calculator. That is like the most basic and kind of get up to now here's agents do that. And literally this morning was talking to our sales team and having to use metaphors about little elves that go around and do stuff but have really bad short-term memory. And like I think that as I mentioned, tech has delivered some amazing things, but I think people are also really weary when the next group says, here's a whole bunch of startups with something new. I think we just have to be very, very cautious about how we move forward, but move forward with a fearlessness that there is, a truly transformative technology that we're using right now. But I'm constantly reminded that I need to take 5 steps back, that we have to talk about this safety, that we have to talk about all of these things that many of us just kind of take for granted have been solved or there's solutions for, and lead the people that haven't been through that journey to the same conclusion or their own conclusion. But yeah, I have a customer call later on this afternoon, and it starts off with, what is AI? And this is talking to executives at a very well-known brand. And if I don't do that, then I'm going to say something where they go, the worst part is everyone nods and goes like, yeah. And then you leave the room, they go like, I don't know half of what that person was talking about. And so you just take your time with them.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective. Just one, I think one last question, we can probably pick one or two from we have a lot of questions actually coming in. So future, right? We have tens of agents. Everyone's talking about tens of agents today, right? I'm sure it will be hundreds of agents, and then it's just going to explode, right? So what's the horizon, right? Is it going to be like packets of internet, so in tens of thousands and millions in 2 years, 5 years? How is we're going to see agents everywhere? It will become just oblivious to us, right? Right. Just would love to see how the future looks like in how many years.
I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you from an enterprise software standpoint, as I said, I think a lot of us are going to have to re-question what it is that we sell, because I don't believe the future is having, ease of use UI, because everything will be ease of use. Everything will be, if I had to paint my future, it is an army of agents that can communicate with each other. And if I'm onboarding a customer and I need to, or an employee, and I have got 6 other systems that I need to work with, first and third party, that we're not writing a bunch of API calls and we're not having conversations around interface integration, that the systems are taking care of themselves autonomously and coming back with the responses that I need. So I do think that is the future of what we're trying to build. And I think each quarter becomes more attainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any last thoughts?
Yeah. I'm a big believer in Roy Amara's law, which is we overestimate the effect of a technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. So I think a year from now, things probably won't be that different. There'll be big pockets of green starting to come up. But I think if we look at a much longer term, say 5 to 10 years out, the world will be profoundly and completely different because of the adoption and use of agents, and also the growing, as Biswaroop put it, the growing sophistication of LLMs, evolving RAG, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other thoughts? Biswaroop, you want to add anything? You're on mute. Yeah,
I think like we covered everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so there are a lot of questions. What I'm gonna request the attendees, if they want to send their questions to maybe at info@raga.ai. I'll just type it here. Right. I will circulate that. We'll circulate it with the panelists. And if they want to answer that offline, because we can't take all the questions at this point, we'll circulate with the panelists if they want to. to the best, whatever responses we get, we will circulate it with the audience we have, right? That's probably one
Or
way. Yeah, go ahead.
you could just DM us on Twitter too if you want. I'm at RMB on Twitter, man. You know,
All right,
all
yeah,
good.
all right, there you go. I think, all right, so I think you can directly tweet the panelists. I think there, and I think you can get some good responses. So I think with that, we would like to conclude the session. This has been an amazing session, amazing set of panelists, right? From the best technologies and brands. The session is available, will be available, is recorded, will be available. I will send out the links to everyone. So once again, thanks a lot. Really excited discussion. Very, very important topic. All of us are rooting for the success of our agents and our customers. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Look for the link from our on the recording. And thanks everyone for attending. Have a great day, a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Gaurav.
Take care.
Oh, Gaurav, I was just going to thank you and Raga for hosting us. Thank you so much for putting this
Definitely.
together.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. This has been an
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
exciting session. Really appreciate it. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.